Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore full time and have a huge collection of videos for you to binge watch to your heart's content. I upload 2 new videos per week with a live stream each week as well. If you like what I do, please consider becoming a member of the channel by clicking the join button below or backing me on Subscribestar or Patreon, where you get access to all the scripts I write for these vids and extras if you prefer to read what I'm saying. I also have a Discord server with an active community and of course subscribe to the channel if you think I've earned it. Kobold Press has released the second Tome of Beasts for 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, so let's take a quick peek inside and examine one of the Fey creatures presented for us to make use of. I've been reading a lot of Feywild lately, getting a better handle on the various courts of the seasons and the roles of the Archfey. On page 156 we find a listing for the Fragrant One, a very fancy title for essentially a small pale yellow and green slug-like creature. Not that small, you know, a couple of feet. When not facing them they look exactly like a non-giant but still very big slug, but when they turn to look at you they actually have a very humanoid face on their head. The flesh is pale pink and they have bright blue eyes, entirely unlike any earthly shell-less terrestrial gastropod mollusk. They still have 4 antennae that look a bit like the eye stalks of a regular slug. The forward smaller pair are also pale pink and as expressive as eyebrows for the Fragrant One's face. The second pair behind are a contrasting very dark greenish brown. They have a couple of pairs of fake antenna nubs just behind them, actually extending into the fleshy mantle that wraps around the back of the head, almost like a cowl. What most people don't know is that the mantle is more anatomically the tail end of the Fragrant One than the actual tail is, or at least that would be the biological business end of the tail. The lower body is mostly just muscle. While they do have a mouth, they also have a single valve-like opening on the side of their body, on the right side, just under the mantle, called the pneumostome, concerned only with breathing. One almost always encounters Fragrant Ones in their preferred habitat, sitting comfortably and lazily on top of a very large mushroom or toadstool. To quote the Tome of Beasts II, it says that the Fragrant One is a whimsical and playful creature whose innocent and friendly demeanour hides a cunning intelligence. Fragrant Ones, you see, feed on companionship and use their magical pheromones to inveigle themselves into the lives of other creatures, particularly woodland humanoids and giants. Strangely, a Fragrant One knows nothing of real commitment or friendship, and all of its relationships are built on lies and deceptions. With a charisma and intelligence of 18, these creatures are remarkably likeable. They ooze character, and most good-hearted and somewhat gullible humanoids are doomed the moment they get close enough for a Fragrant One to open its mouth and start talking to them. If they get closer than 20 feet, however, they are at the mercy of the creature's fragrant aura, the potent pheromones that give the creature their name. Of course, depending on where they are located, they may be known by many different names. The Fragrant Ones make very sure that most of the folk tales about them are almost entirely untrue. Clearly these creatures are inspired by the caterpillar from Alice in Wonderland, skirting around the whole idea of narcotics and going with another stupefying agent, but I can't help but think of the worm on the wall that Sarah encountered shortly after entering the Goblin King's labyrinth. I should also point out that there are even larger varieties of aquatic slugs and snails to choose from, and there's nothing stopping you introducing the idea of monstrously large and ferocious hedgehogs, who are the natural enemies of these fragrant slugs. Perhaps there is also a much more sinister, evil, even undead version of the Fragrant One to be found, particularly those experimented on by cruel hags or transformed into nightmare versions due to exposure to the Shadowfell. Who knows? Food for thought. The Fragrant One emits a cloud of sweet-smelling pheromones within 20 feet of it. It may mask this by smoking a pipe or some such. A giant humanoid or beast that starts its turn inside the aura must succeed on a DC 14 wisdom saving throw or be charmed by these pheromones for 1 minute. The creature can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending the effect on itself on a success. This is more akin to a poison. It's not a spell-like effect. If a creature fails the saving throw 3 times in 1 hour, it is charmed for 1 day and obeys the Fragrant One's verbal or telepathic commands. If the creature suffers harm from the Fragrant One or its allies, or receives a suicidal command, it can repeat the saving throw, ending the effect on a success. The Fragrant One can have no more than 6 creatures charmed at a time. The Fragrant One can end its charm on a creature at any time, no action required. And if the Fragrant One has 6 creatures charmed and a 7th creature fails its saving throw, the Fragrant One can choose to release its charm on another creature and replace it with a new creature, or to have the new creature unaffected by the aura. It has ultimate control even of that chemical miasma around it at all times. I think having the Fragrant One ride on the back of a giant beetle is fun. Also having although the giant beetle is technically a vermin, you can count it as a beast. Also having a puffball carriage towed by a team of charmed myconids is a fun idea. The myconids might not even need to be charmed by it. It could cultivate them. The Fragrant One need not be an evil creature, but it certainly doesn't need to be on the side of goodness either. There are a number of different major factions operating in the Feywild, as well as the evil Fomorian giants, and individual Archfey lords who may have many different Fragrant Ones allied with them or working as agents. They are excellent as bounty hunters, for instance. They are very intelligent and also very observant creatures with 60-foot dark vision, a wisdom of 15, and +4 bonus to perception checks. They will most likely be quite ready for player characters showing up long before the encounter occurs, and may decide to sneak into position using their small size, yellow-green skin blending into the undergrowth, and using some creatures it is already controlled to cause distractions, so that it can get within sufficient range to use its telepathy, and fragrant aura to lure away and entrance one adventurer after another. They probably won't let it be known straight away that they have telepathy. That could be an ability that they only use on charmed individuals, so they can relay their orders without letting anybody know that they're actually commanding the people around them. They are chaotic, neutral in alignment, really only interested in their own self-interest, despite any assurances or promises they make, and they can be very convincing. They will always put others in the line of danger before themselves. This is so deeply ingrained in their nature that they have a special ability they can make use of as a combat reaction called Interpose Ally. When a creature the Fragrant One can see targets it with an attack, the Fragrant One can force a charmed ally within 5 feet of it, basically standing next to it, to move between it and the attack, and the charmed ally then becomes the target of the attack instead. If the charmed one ally takes damage from this attack, it can immediately repeat the Fragrant Aura's saving throw, ending the charmed condition on itself on a success. Now it has to take damage from that, so even a near miss doesn't count, so it behooves it to have something next to it which is pretty good at resisting getting attacked. Their motivation to gain control of others in this way is more than just self-preservation. They really do feed on this association like they're some sort of a psychic parasite. In fact, the more it controls, the stronger it gets. For each charmed ally within 20 feet of it, the Fragrant One gains 5 temporary hit points. Its armor class increases by 1, and it deals an extra 1d4 psychic damage when it hits with any attack. Temporary hit points gained from this trait replenish every 1 minute, and it doesn't have a weakening effect on the charmed creatures around it on paper, but that might be a variation you can add to the situation to make attacking the Fragrant Ones slightly more complicated, as they may drain captured victims to death in order to preserve themselves. So you might want to experiment with a mechanic that allows them to do that. On their own, they're not formidable opponents. They have a natural armor class of 11 and range from 13 to 78 hit points without benefit of any controlled creatures. They are faster than they look though, with a dexterity of 12 and strength of 7, and they can move at 20 feet per round, moving on most surfaces with equal speed, so it counts as a climbing speed as well. Though of course, they truly hate the painful sting of raw salt on their slick skin, and will avoid crossing any bit of ground where pounds of salt has been scattered. You can't kill them with the salt though. Typically they've got natural means to flush their skin with mucus. They're also quite capable of killing an enemy on their own by making use of their long dark antenna. They can unleash a psychic phrenic attack, basically targeting the nervous system. It counts as a melee attack spell attack at +6 to hit one target, inflicting 1d4+4 psychic damage, and the target must succeed on a DC 14 wisdom saving throw or be incapacitated until the end of its next turn. Essentially, it goes into nervous shock. Groups of Fragrant Ones working together could, in theory, enslave an entire village or tribe of humanoids, putting them to work, greatly enhancing the Fragrant One's preferred environment, or perhaps spreading fungus spores and tending to gardens. They're pretty lazy creatures in general. They could also, be hired to enslave creatures to shore up a Fomorian's castle or something like that. There is plenty of amazing new creatures packed into this latest Tome of Beasts by Kobold Press. Hit the like button and let me know if you want to see more from this book and others on their range. Also, patrons and channel members, I will be recording a reading directly from the Codex of Infinite Planes on a lot of the information contained about the Feywild. So check for that towards the end of this week. Don't forget to check out my Teespring merchandise shop, link in the corner at the top of my main channel page or in the details below this video. Thanks for watching. We're your geek with pride, and as always, I'll be back with more for you very soon.